how to replace the AC heater blower motor on a 2005 Dodge Caravan or a Town & Country. These are the tools I use to do this job: a slotted head screwdriver, a cutting knife to cut the insulation, a 1/4-inch drive ratchet with an 8mm deep and shallow socket, an 8mm wrench, and a flexible extension on a ratchet to get a very difficult screw way back up under the firewall. So these are the basic tools you will need to do this job. The first thing you need to do is remove the glove box. First, you need to push in on this plastic to release the bumper, to let it swing down. Do that on both sides of the glove box. And the glove box will swing down out of the way. Next, you need to pop the hinges off. They come off very easily. Do the left, then the right, and the center one pops to the back. Just push it in, and the glove box is off. This is where your blower motor is. This is it from underneath, and this is the housing we need to remove. First, unplug the power from the blower motor by pinching the plug and pulling it out. You need to squeeze and pinch the plug to get it out. Next, you have to remove this trim piece by the kick panel. It just clips right out, and it slides right out from under that plastic trim piece. And just pull it out and set it aside. Next, you need to pull back the carpet out of the way, and we need to remove some insulation. Take a razor knife and cut out this top area. We're going to need to remove that to get way back up in behind to remove a very difficult screw that's hidden back there. But first, let's remove the actuator with these two 8mm head screws, and this operates the air diverter. You just lower this down and you can see the splines that engage with the air diverter shaft. Now comes everybody's favorite part: removing the insulation way up underneath between the blower motor housing and the firewall. It is crazy to get out. I ended up using a pruning saw blade to flex it up there and just shred that stuff out of there. You can see it with the mirror. Once I finally dug enough insulation, I was able to spot the screw head to get it out. In order to get it out, I used a flexible extension so I could curve that angle to get up in there. This screw, closest to the passenger fender well, requires an open-end wrench to get it going. You can't get a socket on it. After that, there's a screw here that's easy to reach, one over here in front, and if you go back underneath toward the back, you can see this fourth screw, which again is easy to get to with an 8mm socket and a ratchet with an extension. You will need to push this grommet in through the hole to be able to get the wiring through to drop the blower housing. This blower housing should just come right out, but mine was kind of stuck. So the shaft from this air diverter right here that goes through the bottom hole down at the bottom of the blower housing, that bottom hole, that shaft is supposed to ride in there, but I needed to poke a screwdriver up through the bottom and pop it out because it wouldn't let go. Once I did, the housing dropped down, and it was pretty easy to just slide out from underneath and get it out. With the blower housing out of the way, you can see this diverter that is rotated by the actuator, and it's to switch either to recirculate air or let air in from the outside. The default position is like this, which is recirculating. So make sure when you reassemble everything, you've got it rotated into this position. Not this, but this position. Now there are 3 screws remaining to be able to take off the actual blower motor. Here's the first screw that you need to take out in order to remove the blower motor. Here's the second one and the third one. And again, these are all 8mm heads. As I get the last screw out, the motor starts to drop down. With all the screws out, you can just push the air diverter out of the way a little and slide the blower motor out, and it should come right out just like that. Here's the old one I just took out, and here's a new one I ordered on eBay. Literally $33, shipping, delivered, the whole bit in a couple days. And just want to compare and make sure everything lines up and it looks like it's going to fit. So just reinsert the blower motor back up like we took it out. Get the 3 screws started just to make sure all the holes line up and everything gets started by hand. And then just go around with your ratchet and snug them all up. You will need to pop the grommet back in to be able to put the blower housing back in place. Next, line up the air diverter shaft down into the bottom hole of the blower housing. Be sure the air diverter is rotated to that original position like I showed earlier in the video. Seat the blower housing up into position very carefully, as it has to fit into a groove all the way around. Then put the actuator back in place with the 2 screws and snug those up. Reinstall all the screws into the blower housing. I didn't bother to put the one way back in the rear, and it held just fine. Finally, plug the new blower in, turn on the key, and test it. Before I bolt everything back up, I want to make sure it works. So just put a little Kleenex there, and I'm going to turn it on to low, and to the second position, third position, fourth position, and it's blowing strong and sounds quiet. You're also going to want to check the actuator to make sure it's working right as you use that recirculating air versus drawing in outdoor air, and listen for that to be sliding that air diverter down there. You can actually hear it. With everything working fine, it's time to just button it all up and put it back together. Here's the insulation put back the best I can. There's a lot missing up underneath. Then put the carpet back in, snap that trim piece back in place. It just snaps in. And last, put the glove box back in. So we're going to snap the hinges on, the middle one first, and then get the left one, and then the right one, and pop it in with your thumb, and there it is. So we just have to lift it back up and push in those 2 rubber bumpers on both sides, and we should be good.